The kindest, most empathetic people are also the easiest to manipulate, and they almost never know what's happening. That's not an opinion. That's what the research actually shows. People who are warm, trusting, and emotionally intelligent, the ones who always try to see the best in others, their brains are literally wired in a way that makes manipulation harder to detect, not because they're gullible, but because their instinct is to protect the relationship, to find the good, to give the benefit of the doubt. And someone who knows how to manipulate, they count on exactly that. So if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling confused, guilty, or just off, and you couldn't even explain why, this video is going to hit different. Because here's the thing about manipulation that nobody really talks about. It's not dramatic. It doesn't look like a movie villain. It doesn't come with a warning label. Most of the time, it sounds completely reasonable. It feels like love. It feels like logic. It feels like just the way things are between you two. And by the time something feels wrong, if it ever does, you've already started doubting yourself way more than you doubt the other person. Crazy, right? So what I want to do today is walk you through three signs, three quiet, easy to miss signs that manipulation might already be happening in your life. And I want to be clear about something up front. This isn't about making you paranoid. It's not about turning you cold or suspicious. It's about getting clear. Because there's a big difference between being paranoid and just finally seeing something that was always there. Okay, let's get into it. Sign number one. You keep explaining your feelings, and somehow, every single time, you end up being the one who apologizes. I want you to think about someone specific right now. A partner, a friend, a sibling, a coworker. Now think about the last time you tried to tell them something hurt you. What happened next? Did they lean in and say, "Hey, tell me more, help me understand"? Or did the conversation just flip? Suddenly, it's about how you're too sensitive, how you always make things a bigger deal than they are, how you can't just let things go. And because you're a thoughtful person, because you genuinely want to be fair, you actually start considering it. Am I overreacting? Maybe I did read that wrong. Maybe I should have just stayed quiet. And then, and this is the part that gets me every time, you walk away apologizing for having feelings. You went into that conversation with a wound and came out carrying guilt. Honestly, that's not a misunderstanding. That's a pattern. Dr. Harriet Breaker, who spent years studying covert control in close relationships, found that this specific reversal, where the person who brought up the hurt ends up comforting or apologizing to the other person, is one of the clearest signs that something manipulative is going on under the surface. Now, look, I'm not saying you should stop being self-reflective. That quality, it's genuinely one of your strengths. But here's the shift I want you to make. Start paying attention to the direction the conversation moves, not just what was said, but how you feel when it's over. Do you feel heard, even a little? Or do you just feel exhausted and vaguely guilty, and you can't even fully explain why? That feeling in your body after those conversations, that's not nothing. That's your nervous system waving a flag. Learn to listen to it. Okay, sign number two. And honestly, this one unsettled me the most when I first learned about it. Your sense of reality has started to feel wobbly. Not in a dramatic, obvious way. It's more like a slow drift. You used to feel pretty solid in yourself, pretty sure of your own memory, your own perceptions, and now you second-guess ordinary things. Did that actually happen the way I remember it? Am I being paranoid? Was I wrong again? You used to trust yourself, and somewhere along the way, that trust just quietly eroded. And the wild part is, you can't even trace when it started. This is what gaslighting actually looks like in real life, not the dramatic Hollywood version, the quiet, everyday version. Dr. Robin Stern, a clinical psychologist who spent decades studying this, describes it as a slow, sustained process of making someone question the accuracy of their own mind. And it works because each individual moment seems so small. That's not what I said. You're remembering it wrong. You're being so paranoid right now. I was obviously joking. Why are you always like this? None of those sentences on their own sounds like a catastrophe, but think about water and stone. Water doesn't break stone dramatically. It just keeps going, slowly, consistently, until the stone changes shape. That's what this does to your self-trust. And here's the really insidious part. Once you stop trusting your own perception, you naturally start outsourcing your version of reality to the person around you, the very person who's been distorting it. I want to ask you something real right now. Think of a time when you were absolutely sure about something, and someone kept telling you that you were wrong. Too emotional, too sensitive, too much. Did you eventually start to believe them? And later, looking back, were you actually right? If that question just landed somewhere uncomfortable, I hear you. Here's something practical you can do starting today. Journal. Not to build a case against anyone, not as some kind of evidence file, just to keep an honest record of your own experience as it actually happens. Research in cognitive psychology shows that when you write things down in the moment, it becomes significantly harder for someone else to rewrite them for you later. Your journal becomes your ground truth. It's one of the quietest, most powerful things you can do for yourself, genuinely. And then there's sign 3, and this is the one people talk about the least, I think because it's the most uncomfortable to admit. You've slowly become a smaller version of yourself. Not all at once, not dramatically, just the things you used to love, they've faded a little. The hobbies, the friendships, the opinions you used to hold confidently, the parts of your personality that felt distinctly, joyfully yours. They're still in there, but they've gotten quieter. And it wasn't a conscious decision. It happened because every time those things came up, there was friction. Subtle disappointment, an eye roll, a sigh, a comment that made you feel like you were just a little too much. So over time, you just made yourself easier. And here's the thing, it didn't feel like shrinking. It felt like maturity, like flexibility, like choosing your battles. Social psychologist Evan Stark calls this identity erosion, and he argues it's one of the most serious long-term effects of manipulative relationships because it sneaks in wearing the costume of growth. And honestly, you might have even gotten complimented for it. You've become so much calmer. You're so much easier to be around now. You used to be so intense. What's actually being said is you used to take up space, and now you don't. And someone framed that to you as personal development. But real growth expands you. It doesn't compress you. So here's the question I want you to actually sit with. Who were you 3 years ago? What did you love? What would you have said no to back then that you now say yes to without even thinking? If the gap between that person and who you are today feels significant, and not in a way that feels like freedom, that's worth paying attention to. One small thing I'd ask you to do this week is do one thing that's purely, unapologetically for you. Not as rebellion, not to make a point, just as a quiet act of remembering. Your preferences aren't inconveniences, they're the architecture of who you are. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. So here's where I want to leave you. The subtlest manipulation doesn't show up with a bang. It lives in the slow buildup of moments where you felt unheard, where your reality felt a little off, where you became just a little less yourself. And the reason it works on you specifically isn't because you're naive or weak. It's because you're someone who values connection, who leads with generosity, who genuinely tries to understand people. Those aren't flaws. Those are some of the best things about you. They were never supposed to be used against you. What shifts now is awareness, because once you can name it, the apologizing for feelings that were valid, the self-trust that got slowly chipped away, the version of yourself that went quiet, it loses its grip. Not all at once, but it does. You don't have to burn anything down to reclaim yourself. You just have to start being honest about what you've actually been experiencing. And then trust that honesty enough to take one small step. That's it. That's the whole thing. If something in this video gave you words for something you've been feeling but couldn't quite name, subscribe. That's what this channel is here for. Every week, we go deep on the psychology of who you are, how your relationships actually work, and how to navigate all of it with a little more clarity than you had before. Understanding yourself is never wasted time. It's the whole point.